Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd take a left turn from the usual videos that I make and talk about media of a different sort, and that is what television, I guess you could say, and well, sporting events and uh, outdoor signs, I guess would be the other one. How does that relate to media? Well, one's advertising, and the other one is like a game on television, or if you go see it in person, it's still media, right? So. Um, anyways, I thought I'd talk about basketball and billboards. All right. So first up, let's talk about basketball. Is it just me, or has basketball become a I don't want I don't want to call it a farce, but is it actually a professional sport anymore? How to explain it? The games seem outrageously high scoring, offensively oriented. Um, I mean, it's not out of the ordinary to see teams score 140, 150 points in some games, right? So, and I know they're scoring like that, um, throughout basketball's history, but um, why does it seem that every time we watch a basketball game now, it seems like half the shots are coming from beyond the 3-point line, right? And why is it that these games are so high scoring? Number one, and number two, many of them are really close. So you'll get, like, let's say a game that's 124 to 120, or 120, 128 to 122, 114 to 113, that kind of thing, right? So, um, and some you'll even get like 148 to 146. Now, you're playing like a 2-hour basketball game, scoring, and I know there are some blowouts, but many of the games are quite close, right? And it's because everybody knows how to shoot well, right? So this game has become an offensive game where so much of the game is shooting from the 3-point line or beyond, right? So, I mean, if shooting at the 3-point line used to be like back when I used to watch basketball all the time, which is back in the Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird era, right? Um, uh, Much of the shooting from the 3-point line was in the 30%. If you were shooting 30%, you were doing very well. Now the shooting is in, like, isn't it in the 40s, right? And free throw shots within the 2-point area is like over 50%, or 46 to 50%, somewhere around there. Anyways, you can look it up. But I know 3-point shooting is like in the 40% range, right? So um, what's happening is there's basically no defense in the NBA anymore. Argue with me in the comments if you disagree, but there is no defense in the NBA anymore. I mean, they did address it, bringing back zone defenses, but not a lot of teams use zone defenses, an extreme amount. Let's put it that way. Most of them incorporate zone into their game structure, but most of the time it's man to man. And if it's man to man, it's very easy. You take your best player, you isolate them by moving people away from the key or the lane, and then you just go one on one or one on two, and the guy will score almost every time. It's and if he can't get in, then they just pass it back and take a 3-point shot and hit that shot for it every 10 times, right? So there is no defense in the NBA anymore, and it makes the game farcical. Basically, you might as well, what you should do, which is basically the equivalent, okay, is basically you take, let's say, 5 of your guys or 7 of your guys, all right, and you basically give them 20 to 40 shots each. All right. So let's say your best player, like, you can designate, okay, you can give your best player 40, and, your second best player 30 shots, and then give like 3 other guys 20 shots. And then you just, set up dots on the on the floor where they shoot from. And you have some of them, say half of them will be from the three point area. The other half will be, like midway, and then Sorry, half will be from the 3 point area, and the other half will be either midway between the 3 point area and the thing, and the other one would be, just go ahead and dunk it, right? So, um, and then whoever shoots better wins, right? Because basically that's what the game is now. The game is whoever has the best shooters on a given day wins the game. There is no, well, I won't say no. There's very little that happens defensively that influences a game or not. What it is, I mean, you have to play defense, but people are shooting over defenses all the time now. And with the 3 point shot, I mean, it's been around since what, 79, 80, I think the 3 point shot came about. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's like 1980 um, when they instituted the 3 point shot. Um, what happened is they banned zone defenses back in the 40s, like 40, 49, 47, 48, somewhere around there. They banned zone defenses, and so you had to play man to man all the time, right? And then they had a really thin, um, you know, key or lane, whichever one you want to call it, very thin lane. But then they widened it like I think it's 16 feet now wide. It used to be like 8 or 10 feet wide, and it was like 12 feet wide at one time. But anyways, they kept expanding it because you get like these really tall 7 footers just go into the key. One of your guards would just pass it to them, they'd turn around and shoot and get it in, right? So what they did was they expanded, and then they put in, the 3 second rule where if you're on offense, you can stay in the key for more than 3 seconds, otherwise it would be a technical foul, right? Um, so that kind of eliminated some of that, right? But um, the game has become an offensive game. There is no defense. Basically, if you have the better shooters and they shoot the way that they're supposed to do in a game, you will win against another team that has inferior shooters. All right, so there's not much you can do about it. There's no defense. It's man to man. You want to, if a team plays man to man, you just isolate your best player, uh, going one on one with a guy. You move everybody out of the lane, and I mean, and they just go one on one or one on two, and any half decent basketball player, offensive basketball player, can beat two guys easily and score pretty much 80-90% of the time. Um, it's very easy if you have the skills, which most NBA offensive players have, um, to score on one opponent, even two, sometimes even three. I mean, just look at it; it's so ridiculous. But anyway, so there's hardly any defense. I mean, there's defense, but it just doesn't work. All right, with the 3 point shot, if you play a zone defense and you protect your net, you know, at the perimeter, you can't move out so far to cover a 3 point shot. So people will just be shooting 3 pointers. And at the beginning, when the 3 point shot was first introduced, people were shooting 20, 30%. So it was more, if you were getting buckets in at 50 or 60% within, the 2 point areas, and you were only hitting like one in every three or four from the 3 point area, it made more sense to penetrate the defense to have a higher opportunity of scoring, even though it's 1 point less, right? But you know, since the 3 point shot has been implemented, you have specialty guys that just shoot from 3 points. That's all they do: shoot, 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 and you get guys that are shooting 40, 50% from the 3 points, and so then you can't really play a zone defense against that because your players are too spread out. It makes it too easy to do like two or three passes, and bam, the guy's by the net and he scores quite easily. So so then you got to play man to man. But the problem with man to man is that anytime it's a one-on-one situation, the offensive player will always win. It's very rare that a defensive player will win because offensive basketball dominates over defense. All right. So basically you're just watching a game where they run up the court, they shoot, they either get it in or they don't. They run back, they shoot. There's no defense. Every once in a while, you may get a steal or a block or whatever. But basically, the teams are well made. They're oiled machines. They pass it around. If they want to do a 3 point shot, they're going to get a 3 point shot. They want to do a shot inside. They'll move the defense out of the way of a player, and that player will go 1-on-2 or 1-on-1 or whatever. Right. Um, so the game has become very high scoring, and I guess it's fun to watch if you like shooting, right? I mean, watching Stephen Curry shoot 3 pointers is like, it's like magical. How the hell does he do that? You know what I mean? I mean, Us average folks may be lucky to get like 50% from the free throw line, right? So this guy's shooting like almost, let's say, 50% from the 3 point line with defenders in front of him, right? So, um, but shooting has become so good that defense, doesn't even matter anymore. I mean, you could have the best defensive team against um, the best offensive team, and the best offensive team uh, will score pretty much the same amount of points it will score against a team that's just an average defensive team, because it's the shooting that matters. It's how accurate uh, players can shoot, right? Um, so it's become a boring spectacle. It's just way too high scoring, and there's no defense. You know, let's take hockey. I'm from Canada, so let's use a hockey example. If you go back into the '80s in the Gretzky, Mario Lemieux era, where the Edmonton Oilers were just racking up points. All right, Grant Fuhr was one of the greatest um, goaltenders of all time, and his goals against average was always like just below 4. You know what I mean? Because the team didn't play any defense, right? Edmonton, was a total offensive team, and they just wiped teams out. Gretzky would score 200 points a year, right? Uh, Messier would get like 40, 50 goals. Curry would get 70 goals. You understand? It was just a wickedly. Paul Coffey would be like a 30 goal scorer, and he's a defenseman, right? Just offensive oriented, and it was you couldn't stop it with the way that um, the defenses were at the time. But then they adjusted and they started doing the trap, and the trap just killed offense, right? The trap just stopped the offense, and then they had to start making rules against the trap. And one of the rules that they made was you could pass it over 2 lines and it wouldn't be an offside, right? That was to negate a lot of the what the trap defense did. But you understand, somebody thought up the trap because of the Gretzky Mario Lemieux era, where high scoring was the way, and if you didn't score, your team would get wiped out, right? So what does a team do that has you know good players, great defensive players, right? But then an offensive team just comes and wipes them out. Well, you think of a strategy, defensive strategy, to negate that, and what that was the trap, right? So so then you saw lower scoring games, and I said, hey, these games are lower scoring. The reason why they're lower scoring is because the defense caught up to the offense, right? And you could, same thing with football. You could at one time draft. In fact, a lot of teams did. They would draft their defense over their offense first, because a good defensive team that could stop the run would win games. I mean, they would win them 12-10 or 14-7 or whatever, but they would win a lot of games. Like look at the Chicago Bears, for example, right back in the '80s, right? Um, anyways, so defense. If you had a very good defensive coordinator, a person that could think defensively and had the talent of the players, defensively minded, talented players, play the defense the way that the it's outlined. You could stop an offense. You could, if an offensive team comes into your stadium, you could stop them and have them score much less than if they went into another stadium with an average defensive team, right? They would score a lot more against an average defensive team than a great defensive team. Whereas in the NBA, who cares what your defense is? All right, your defense is not going to stop an offensive team, right? I mean, do you ever see a game where it's like 140-75 or something? No, the games are. How can you shoot like 50, you know, 100 shots in a game, 150 shots in a game, however many it is, and score like 120 points, and the other team is scoring almost the same as you, and the difference between the two of you is like maybe a couple of buckets. You know what I mean? Play all that time, and you're scoring so often, but it's scoring so often for both teams. Do you understand what I mean? It's not like if you put a great defensive team on the court, you're going to stop an offense and have it, shoot 80 points. I mean, you get the occasional anomaly, but do you understand what I mean? It's more that the shooters are off and the defense is stopping them, right? So how do you make the NBA not a joke anymore, right? I mean, they'll never do it, but basically you got to. get rid of the because the offense used to hang around in the key, get passes. The taller guys would get the passes, turn around and shoot it in the net quite easily, right? Okay, so they expanded the key and they did the 3 second rule. All right. Well, they put the 3 second rule in like in what was it, 2000? I think it was 2000. No, 2000, 2001, I think is when they allowed zone defenses again. But what they did was they put the same burden, that 3 second rule, on the defense as well. So if you're a defender, you're not allowed in your own key for more than 3 seconds unless you're defending directly a guy, right? So, I mean, like hands length, all right? So they did two things that made defense pointless in basketball, all right? Number one, well, three. Well, there was a bunch of things, but let's cover three of the major ones. One was institute a 3 point line. All right. So now you could draft players that were just great shooters. All right. And you wouldn't have to play any offense, like gritty offense. It was how it used to be that you would need to be able to score. You needed a tall man. And if not, you needed very agile players. Right. Okay. Um, to score, it was a challenge to score. All right. So you did it, but at least there was a challenge there. And the defensive teams um, would shine. Um, through a season, an 80 game season or whatever, you would see the great defensive teams up there with the great offensive teams, right? Anyway, um, so the 3 point killed the defense. Number one. Number two is the 3 second rule for the defense. I don't know why, but if you want to pop a defender inside your key and leave him there, like especially a tall center, that's where he should be. He should be in the paint at all times, blocking shots, stopping people from penetration, and all that. That's where you want your guy. You don't want him running outside of 16-foot area because there's nobody to cover, and then he's away from the basket, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is um, the tap. If you watch basketball, go back like let's say, 1990s or earlier, you saw defenders because it's the only way that they could defend against a really good. Um, because remember, they're moving backwards, and the guy with the ball is moving forward. You can run faster forward, like 3 times as fast or 10 times as fast forward than you can backwards, right? So the defender has no chance. All right, 1-on-1, you get a good offensive player against a great defensive player. That offensive player will score pretty much every time. Okay, so what the defense used to do would be the push shove. All right, you were allowed to touch the offensive player, but not foul him. Like this wasn't a foul. Like if he was coming close to you, you could do this and push him away. You could use your hands to push him, all right, to get him out of your way. You understand what I mean? Like to move him one way or to move him. You couldn't grab him and pick him up and move him. You couldn't elbow him in the face. You couldn't trip him, anything like that. But you could lay your hands on him if he's coming too close to you, right? So you're in his face and he's uh, uh, trying to dribble around you or whatever, all right, he moves and puts his back towards you. Well, you could push him, right? Push him back away from the net, all right? Now you can't do that. That's a foul, all right? So that's the third one. So 3 pointers, the 3 second rule for the defense, and no touching the offensive player basically eliminated um, uh, defense from the league. Now it's defense really doesn't matter. It's whoever has the better shooters. All right. So if you have really good shooters on your team and they can shoot from the 3 point line very well, and within in the 2 point line if they're open as well, and they can shoot with people in their faces, which so many of them can. All right. Defense doesn't matter anymore. It's how well you shoot. If your team can shoot better than your other team, you're going to pretty much win every time, whether the other team improves on its defense or doesn't improve on its defense. All right. So the offense is just too hard to stop with the rules in the NBA as they are today. At least that's my opinion. What do you think? All right. So if you want to actually get a sport where actually defense matters, all right. I mean, it's slowly happening in the NFL as well, but that's because of concussions, right? A lot of stuff that the defense used to be able to do can't you can't do it anymore, and that just leaves the offense open to score a lot more, right? So, but anyways, how are you going to make basketball a respectable sport again, where it's not just, might as well just have five guys go up. Okay, I'll take 20 shots, you take 20 shots. Whoever scores more wins the game, because that's basically what it is. It's come down to basically that. So, um, if you disagree, leave it in the comments. If you don't, what do you think the solution is? My point is, at minimum, get rid of the 3 point rule, 3 second rule for the defense. The defense, they're in their defending court. They should be able to go wherever they want. All right. They shouldn't have to cover anybody if they don't want to cover them. Right. All right. So um, get rid of that. You'll never get rid of the 3 point shot, because people really enjoy watching, the Currys of the world do 3 pointers. Right. So, um, but that kind of ruined defensive basketball as well. Right. How far you shoot shouldn't matter. So it should be 2 points, in my humble opinion, anyways. All right. So if you want to get rid of all three, get rid of, you're allowed to now, uh, you know, touch the defender. All right. Um, you're allowed in your own key for more than 3 seconds, and get rid of the 3 point line. You'll see a lot of game. I mean, you'll see scoring go way down, but you'll see a team that actually has a defense, um, compete with a team that has a good offense. All right. And that's the way that all sports should be. If you have a really good defensive team, you should be able to compete with a really good offensive team. And in every sport, it's usually that way. All right. So, except for basketball. And slowly, football is becoming that way as well. But there's safety concerns for that. And so I have no disagreement with that. Um, but it does make the game a little bit less exciting when the defense is at such a disadvantage, right? So, all right. So that is basketball. All right. Now, what about billboards? Okay, I want to put something forward to you guys when it comes to billboards, and they really fucking sorry for my language, they really irritate the hell out of me. All right. And I could never figure out why they irritated the hell out of me. I mean, we get commercials everywhere, right? We get ads everywhere, right? I mean, you need, signage in order to know. I mean, the first thing a person does when they're doing something incorrect and somebody points it out, you go, where's the sign, right? So we're so sign oriented. It's just crazy, right? Um, So we want instruction on how to behave when we're in the public, and that's what signs do. All right. But there's signs, and then there's advertising. All right. So I finally figured out why billboards irritate the hell out of me. All right. And let me tell you what it is, and see if you agree with me or not. Okay. So if um, you're driving down the road, and you get a big billboard for Coca-Cola or McDonald's. It's usually a restaurant of some sort or something, right? And it says, Big Mac special, or 6 pack of Coca-Cola at your local grocery store, 2.49 or something, right? Some sort of ad that's advertising something. All right. Um, well, you're supposed to be driving, number one. All right. And these billboards distract you from driving. All right. So they're usually flashy. They're usually, brightly colored. They grab your attention, right? So they pull your attention from the road, number one. Um, so they're kind of minimally a safety hazard. I've never really gotten into a car accident because I was looking at a billboard rather than the road. I mean, the billboard makers are smart. They have the reading section is less than 8 words usually. If you notice, if you have a billboard, it has very few words on it, because they know that you're going to look at it quickly and then look away, right? So you may have a second to grab the attention of a driver, right? You'll also see them along, if you ever take a train, right? You'll see them along in the middle of an open field with nothing around except maybe cows and grass. And you'll see a billboard, right? And they're specifically directed at you, looking out the window when you're enjoying nature, let's put it that way. And then bam, here's a billboard in your face for, whatever, like Burger King or something, right? Um, so they always irritated me, but I couldn't figure out why. And now I realize why, because when I would see, uh, let's say I'd pick up a Sports Illustrated or another magazine that I liked back when magazines were popular, and I'd open it up, and there would be an ad, a full page ad for Coca-Cola or Burger King or something. And then, the next page you'd have an article or some pictures of a sports athlete or something. And then the next page you get another ad or whatever, right? Um, those irritated me less. They still irritate me a bit because, I'm paying for this magazine and they're showing me advertising. But I know that one of the reasons why the price of the magazine is the price it is and not higher is because of the ads that are in it, right? Um, and another, when you let's say when you watch ads didn't bother me on television when you watch television as much either. Some of them are actually quite funny, so they're enjoyable to watch, but most of them were kind of, mundane and boring. But um, they're okay because, that was the time that you could get up and go get a drink of water, or if it was an interesting ad, you could watch it and laugh, or think it interesting, or something about it that grabs your attention going, oh, the Swiffer, the Swiffer made all its money from advertising, right? That Swiffer mop, right? They didn't have the advertising campaign. You like pretty much every home has a Swiffer in it now because of it, right? So there is point to advertising, all right. Um, and this is where I figured it out. And I'm a slow guy. I'm an ignorant intellectual, right? So, but I finally figured it out. Okay, when I see an ad on television, all right, I know that ad is there because it's paying for the program that I'm seeing. So if I enjoy the program, watching the program, let's say Magnum PI back in the day, all right, I really enjoyed watching Magnum PI. So watch it, and then every 15 minutes, 10 minutes, you get like 3 minutes or 4 minutes of commercials or whatever. I mean, it got to the point, TBS. I had to stop watching TBS at one time, the Turner Broadcast, because except for where in my location you could see the Atlanta Braves and some other baseball games, the Turner movies, they would cut out 20 minutes of the film just to add more advertising to it. It was just ridiculous how Turner TBS was that way. I had to stop watching it, but usually the advertising was reasonable, and you could watch an hour program and you would get 40 minutes, 45 minutes of programming, and 15 to 20 minutes of advertising, right? But you knew the reason why the advertising was there is because it brought you the program, and the program was free. I mean, you did have to pay for a cable, which was a bit irritating, but you could have the rabbit ears and watch TV for free if you wanted, right? You could get 3 or 4 stations that way. But anyways, you knew that the advertising was there because if you did have cable, um, it it paid for the program, right? So, and the upper stations, it paid for those to be able to be, viable, right? So, and when you bought a magazine, you see advertising in the magazine, the reason why that advertising is there is, it's for the magazine to make some money, and it keeps the price of the magazine at a reasonable cost. Um, so there was a benefit for it. You got a reward for the advertising. In other words, it was like somebody calling you up and saying to you, um, I'll give you $25 if you let me tell you a 30-second ad or whatever. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. They're paying you in a way, right? You get free programming instead of paid programming. And the advertising was, that's you had a relational, you had a relationship with, the advertising, the magazine, the television program, whatever. You had a relationship with it was, I will give you this for free, but you're gonna watch advertising. I mean, you still have it on your phone or whatever, right? You play a game. Let's say you uh, go on Google Play and you download a game or whatever, and you play it. You'll get advertising on it, and if you don't want the advertising, you pay an amount or whatever. Sometimes it's a subscription. Sometimes it's just pay $4.99. You can have the game for free with no advertising, whatever, right? So the advertising is always there because there's a reciprocal relationship between you and the advertiser. I will show you advertising, but for you to watch it, I will give you something for free. All right. Um, so that's the relationship, right? With billboards, there's none of that at all. All right. Billboards is just a one-way ad. It's like turning on the television and only getting ads. It's like going to buy a magazine, opening it up, and all you get is ads, right? Downloading a uh, a game off the internet, and when you play it, all you do is get ads, right? That's what a billboard is. A billboard is not a relationship. It's not a reciprocal relationship. It's a one-way relationship, and they're basically like invading your space without giving you a reward for it, right? It, and that's why it irritated me so much, and that's the reason why it popped into my head. Oh, that's the reason why, right? So I spontaneously combusted it in my head, right? So I'm going, okay, I might as well put a video up and see how many other people. either figured that out a lot earlier than I did, um, or maybe they don't know and now they know the reason, or do you think billboard advertising is okay? You understand what I mean? Like like it's everywhere outdoors, and they're advertising you without you getting a benefit of anything for it. You're not getting a television program, you're not getting a game, you're not getting magazine articles, you're not getting a newspaper, you're not getting anything. It's just basically blatant in your face. Um, there was only one thing that irritated me more than outdoor billboard magazine. In fact, I think that's the reason. You ever hear of guerrilla marketing, where you get the guys, the guys would get up on a billboard and start manipulating the billboard ad, right? I think that's the motivation for that, right? Um, but the most obnoxious other than those things were when you would go into a bar or a restaurant and you go into the bathroom, especially at the urinal, and they have ads right on your face while you're taking a leak, right? So, there's some things you want to do by yourself one of them is, use the washroom, and the other, uh, maybe, making babies, let's say. Um, you want to be alone with it, right? So you go into the crapper, you close the door and you sit down, and basically on the back of the door there's an ad, all right? Or you go to the urinal, and in front of you is an ad in front of the urinal, right? And I'm going, okay, this is just getting freaking ridiculous, right? So those things even irritate me more. In fact, a lot of them were taken out because of the vandalism that it inspired, right? Now I never vandalized any of them, but there has been many a times that I've gone into a restaurant or a bar that I had frequented where there was in your face advertising in front of you while you're taking a leak or you know uh, using the toilet, and the next time I go in, that isn't there anymore, right? So it's because it's a one-way relationship, right? It's like we're gonna bombard you with ads, all right, but there's no reciprocal thing to it. So in fact, it actually turns me off, right, from those ads. Basically, if I see an ad on a billboard or an ad in a urinal, I will actually avoid buying that, um, because of it, because it's an invasion of my space, right? And there's no, you know, quid pro quo to it, if you want to put it that way. So so now every time I see a billboard, it actually every now that I mean I did it basically subconsciously before, but I'm doing it, consciously, that every time I see an ad, that type of ad where it's a one-way relationship where they're forcing their crap onto you without a reciprocal benefit, let's say, I actually avoid that for as long as that ad. So if I see a Burger King ad up on a billboard that I drive by, um, as long as that billboard is up, I don't go to Burger King. So once that billboard is taken down and I no longer see Burger King, then maybe I'll go to Burger King, whatever, right? So I just avoid whatever businesses are putting up those ads. I just avoid them as best I can, right? So um, maybe maybe if there's a trend that way, they'll get rid of billboards. You know what I mean? It's just such a one-way relationship. Anyways, okay, so that's basketball and that's billboards. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree? Is there actual defense in the NBA that actually matters? That influences scores, that makes one team better than the other because they have a better defense. Um, are billboards fine? Is it like, hey, it's a free country, that's the property, but they may be putting it on private property, but they're putting it into your face, right? So, anyways, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you in my next video. You have a great day. Bye for now.